The Heavenly Demon. Can't Live a Normal Life. By Sanchin. Chapter 104. The Unfinished War. Part 1. The basis of Baron Vasily's judgment came from the report of the scout who went around. The enemies are advancing rapidly towards the third defense line. The advance unit is likely to arrive in the next 2 hours, and the latter group that is following the advance unit is moving with war supplies. According to what we confirmed, the number of troops in the advance unit is about 2,500, and the latter group contains 500 troops as well. That meant there were 3,000 troops in total. That was quite a lot of people. Baron Vasily judged that if the Hector kingdom was steady and they used flares, the third defense line would be destroyed. Thus, he came up with the method of organizing a guerrilla unit and attacking the enemy with that. The southern front doesn't need to win against the Hector kingdom. The main troops will arrive in just 10 days, and the situation will be reversed then onward. Therefore, the operation using a guerrilla unit is a very good way to annoy the enemy. We will interfere as much as possible with their target, and if the rear side has flare, then we will aim to make it useless. It was a dangerous plan. There were 500 troops in words, but if they got caught by them, the situation would become worse than they imagined. However, Baron Vasily thought differently. Didn't Roman Dmitri do it? It wasn't enough to defeat the enemies with 200 men, but he slaughtered around 1,000 troops, right? The spirit of a hero was trembling in the chest of Baron Vasily. Although he was relegated to the southern front, he was a 3-star Aura swordsman who once served on the western front. There is no way I cannot do what Roman Dmitri did. After all, it is a battle of merit. From now on, the person who gets as many merits as possible within the next 10 days will be able to enter the central government once the war is over. He made the decision and gathered 300 soldiers. After sneaking out of the walls to not get noticed by the enemy, he evaded the advance unit and took the lead on the path. Stop. He raised the hand and signaled the soldiers to take cover, and they hid in the grass. Baron Vasily exerted his full abilities as an Aura swordsman to make sure that the rear troops were approaching. There was no sign of the latter group being near them. However, since this was the southern front, he knew very clearly that there was no way back, and he was sure they would show up soon enough. And as expected, he saw a group following the troops from afar. Although the battle hadn't even started yet, Baron Vasily couldn't hide his desire. A wise man once said that a crisis is an opportunity. Today, because of this opportunity, I will be freed from this disgusting reality. He thought the difference in power was insignificant. He believed that if they were slaughtered by just 200 of Roman's troops, then 300 of his troops were more than enough to deal with them. Speed was the key to the operation, and if the enemy's supplies were set to fire, then the Hector kingdom would surely face difficulties in the future. He held his breath and continued to wait. Finally, as the enemies came in range, Baron Vasily slammed the ground and shouted with a voice full of mana, "Attack! Slaughter all the troops!" It was a surprise attack. And Cairo's troops rushed crazily, thinking they would win this battle. Rumble. An aura rose high. Baron Vasily manifested aura on his sword and swung it at the knight guarding the enemy's front. I will subdue them with the first hit. He had a strong conviction. He believed the attack would work, and in his head, he had already cut down the knight. However, Quang. Rumble. The knight of Hector, too, manifested an aura on his sword. Despite the surprise attack, the troops of Hector were prepared and blocked the enemy's attack easily. When their auras clashed fiercely, Baron Vasily felt dizzy. Even though he hadn't exchanged many attacks, he, at once, understood that the opponent had a stronger aura than him. The enemy is also a 3-star Aura swordsman. His complexion turned pale. It was strange. Contrary to what he expected, the soldiers who were running behind him also screamed and fell one after another. Enemy! The remnants of Cairo have appeared. The Hector kingdom's response was consistent. The arrows from the sky made Cairo's men raise their shields to block them, and Hector's men slaughtered them while they couldn't focus on the front. That was the start of a massacre. Obviously, Baron Vasily's troops had thought they had an advantage, but as soon as they collided with Hector, they were all swept away. "This is the revenge for my comrades." Hector's soldiers' eyes were furious. As they carried out the funeral of their comrades with tired faces, they grunted to get revenge against Cairo. The surprise attack of the enemy? They had expected it. After all, they had dealt with Roman Dmitri, who was a monster and had slaughtered innumerable comrades in the mountains filled with darkness, so they took it for granted that they could be attacked in any situation. The latter group was set up as a trap. They intended to wag their tail and pull in the enemy, just like they had suffered. Fweet! Bang! A signal was shot, and the troops instantaneously blocked Cairo's escape route. The troops of the advance unit, which they thought were far away, had returned back in an instant, and while the soldiers of Cairo were panicking, they blocked the way out. Wherever they went, Hector's soldiers were blocking the way. They tried to make a way, but as expected, not a single one of Cairo's men could make them move. This is absurd. Baron Vasily's eyes began to twitch. He couldn't believe the situation. According to his common sense, the Hector kingdom should have been in a mess, but their quick response was stifling. It didn't happen simply because they prepared. Hector kingdom's troops had been trained sufficiently in preparation for this war, and the soldiers of Cairo, who were intoxicated with the comfort on the southern front, were not at a level that could deal with them. Baron Vasily also didn't think of this. It was an achievement that was only made possible by Roman Dmitri. The miraculous victory of Roman Dmitri gave birth to his overconfidence, and he, who was consistently being pushed back by Hector's knights, eventually lost all his strength. Quang! As his arm flew back, his expression turned pale. An aura seemed to fill his vision. Fuck! Slash! That was the last thing he remembered. The royal family of Cairo was enjoying leisure because they thought they had secured the upper hand against the Hector kingdom after a single victory. Nevertheless, that lasted for only a moment. After a day, they received a series of shocking reports that made them embarrassed. It is said that Baron Vasily, the captain of the 3rd defense line, was killed in the battle with the enemy. Your Majesty! The 3rd and 4th defense lines were captured by the enemy's attacks. The 2nd defense line is the only one left. If that collapses as well, the southern front will fall into the hands of the Hector kingdom. We have just received a call from the 2nd defense line. They have reported that they cannot withstand the enemy's attacks for long. It was just one day. It had been only 24 hours since they had received the report that the Hector kingdom had begun their attack. The difference in power was now obvious. It was true that they were at a disadvantage from the start, but as Roman Dmitri gained momentum, they believed they could do something. However, what did this mean? Daniel Cairo couldn't accept how quickly the situation had deteriorated. Did something we didn't expect happen? There was no way to explain this other than that. Still, that wasn't it, either. The remnant who barely survived the attack of the Hector kingdom had said this in his last contact with the royal family of Cairo. The flare possessed by the Hector kingdom was finally exposed. Still, we couldn't stop them. Even if they weren't attacking by breaking down the wall, the Hector kingdom's slaughter cannot be stopped. Please, save us. We cannot last 10 days. Here. It is just a matter of time before the southern front falls into the hands of the enemies. That was shocking news. Due to the aging facilities on the southern front, the magic defense artifacts didn't work properly. Actually, they had thought the initial defeat was because of the loss of walls due to flare. The Hector kingdom could not secure more supplies due to the ongoing war and their nation's financial condition, and the flare would also fall down fast. However, things changed. The troops began to show more cruelty to Cairo. The difference in power and the collapsing southern front were obvious, and Daniel Cairo only then understood what a single victory meant. It isn't that Cairo is strong nor is Hector weak. A variable named Roman Dmitri produced an amazing victory, and we should have acknowledged the difference in power with the enemies and ordered the captains to avoid any head-on confrontations against the enemy. Maybe they should have expected this. With the miracle Roman created, everyone thought that there was hope for such miracles to exist everywhere. Nevertheless, the reality was clearly sour and dire. Where is Roman Dmitri now? Daniel Cairo naturally had no other choice but to find Roman. The Cairo royal family found Roman Dmitri. They had contacted Henry Albert, and he instantly went to Chris and asked, "Chris, didn't Sir Roman say when he will be out? The southern front is on the verge of collapse. It isn't known when it will fall into the hands of the enemies, and I need to pass on the message of the royal family to Sir Roman." He was frustrated. The defense lines down the mountain were being captured one by one. This was a golden chance to gain something more, but Roman had disappeared right after the overnight battle. Chris said, "This was already expected." What? The liege said that the victory against the Hector kingdom was thanks to a lot of luck. If they hadn't followed us up the mountain and held down here until the end, they would have captured the entire southern front even sooner than now. Roman Dmitri wasn't the kind to be drunk on victory. Faced with the reality, he knew what it would be like to go down the mountain and prevent the attack of Hector. Thus, he ordered everyone to take a break. He anticipated that Cairo would be defeated and decided to conserve the power of his troops. How? Henry Albert was speechless as he couldn't understand Roman's actions. Everyone had expected they would be defeated in the guerrilla battle. When he had heard of the plan, he himself gave up hope, but Roman Dmitri brought them a victory, and when they thought about the chance of victory, they all realized that Roman Dmitri was someone who was out of this realm. No matter how unfavorable the situation was, no one dared to guess what Roman was doing after cutting off contact with the outside world. Henry had to show the royal family that Roman was still there, but he could not do anything about the attitude Chris was showing. He gazed far away, where Roman was. What is he doing there all by himself? He didn't know that even at this moment, Roman Dmitri was a step ahead in the unknown. Chapter 105. The Unfinished War. Part 2. As soon as the battle was over, Roman was lost deep in thought. There are still many things I don't know about this world. It was a world of unknown things. The magic he had experienced for the first time in his life gave him a new shock. He had obviously read a lot of books in the library and tried to understand what magic was and had prepared for it countless times in his head. However, the knowledge in his mind and reality were different. He knew that Mother Nature reacted to the touch of magic, but the snake-like trunks and intense flames were something he didn't think of. That was a different realm than shamans. It was quite amazing. If Muram had developed martial arts with the same roots using the energy of nature, this world had created a new one called magic. Magic is a path I cannot judge hastily. If Edwin Hector was a much greater mage than he is now, I might not have been able to escape alive. I haven't fully recovered the martial arts of Baek Jin-hyuk yet, and my hasty judgment may drive me into a limb. The fight with Edwin Hector and Butler was dangerous. Edwin Hector's magic attacked Roman in an unexpected manner, and Butler was the first man he considered truly strong in the world of Roman Dmitri. He even had to use the third move of the Heavenly Demon Sword art. Nevertheless, the attack aiming for Butler's life was blocked, and he could lose his life if he made a mistake in the counterattack he made without stopping. If he could turn back time, what choice would Roman make? I would have made the same choice back then. It was a luxury to expect safety on the battlefield. Heavenly Demon Baek Jin-hyuk had risen to the peak by overcoming numerous difficult situations, and he had the same thoughts even now. Life-threatening experience was required. If he died because of lack of ability, he would end up being just stuck at that level, and if he survived the ordeal, he could move on to the next level. His blood began to boil because he knew there were still many mountains he had to overcome in this new world. Roman Dmitri couldn't control the boiling blood which was rising in his body as he watched the sunrise. Chris. Please say it, my liege. The Hector kingdom will not simply give up. This is a war, not just a battle of pride. The fate of the entire Hector kingdom is on the line. Perhaps after a day's rest, they will quickly try to clear up the defense lines on the southern front. Then, shall we prepare the troops for that? No. He shook his head. Edwin Hector wasn't an easy opponent. If he continued the war despite experiencing his powerlessness, it meant that he had made sufficient preparations. Only a small fraction of the enemies were dealt in the night. The Hector kingdom still has an overwhelming power compared to the southern front, and if we go down the mountain prematurely, there is a possibility of being annihilated by the enemies. It is not a matter of what we can do from now on. The royal family of Cairo will definitely send their main force to subdue the Hector kingdom, so until then, you need to rest and maintain the current power. He did not get drunk on victory and faced reality. The well-being of the other people on the southern front? That didn't matter. Risking their own lives to save them was a foolish decision right now. The captains of the southern front chose to remain there despite my warning. From now on, it is their responsibility. If they hold out for 10 days, they will survive, but if they get taken down, it won't be a huge impact as well. The question is whether Cairo's main troops can capture the rear position in the first place. I will keep the power in hand till then and do what I can with the plans laid. He made a decision. Chris nodded. I understand. Roman climbed the mountain after leaving him behind. I am going to spend some time alone for a while. Until I order, do not let anyone interrupt me, Chris. That was the last command given by Roman that Chris remembered carefully. He made a true defense circle. Then Roman, who created his own space, sat cross-legged and fell into meditation. Edwin Hector. He was waiting like a spider. He dug a trap and expected me to attack. Roman took a deep breath, and his consciousness began to sink in. Soon, his 5 senses faded, and even the sensations he was feeling until then faded away. He started with a strong flame. Roman blinked his eyes and opened them. A strong fire broke out right in front of him and almost swept him away. Inferno! Crackle! FSSSSSHHHHHH. The heat was enough to melt the skin at once. Roman quickly escaped. At that time, just like it was in his memory, Edwin Hector tried to drive him away with magic. What if I attacked without giving him time? Rumble! The man arose, and the movements felt explosive. Nevertheless, he dug into the space of the opponent, and even though the fire was burning right in front and aiming for him, he blew it away with a simple movement. Still, he had taken some damage. His skin was red, but it wasn't burning because he had prevented direct damage by using mana to protect himself. Just then. Lightning. Flash. It was a swift sword movement. Aura manifested on his sword, and in the blink of an eye, Edwin Hector was decapitated. No, the attack didn't work. Edwin Hector disappeared with blink as if he knew how to avoid Roman's attack, and Butler didn't miss the chance and moved forward to attack. At that moment, Roman's body shook. That was because Butler, who was angered by the fact that Edwin Hector had been attacked, had raised his 5-star aura and attacked Roman furiously. Quang! Quackwang! The surroundings shook. Roman became sure that Butler was one step ahead of him. Even though he was just imagining all of this, the pressure was vivid, and Roman countered the attack by kicking the ground and aiming for Butler's feet. And at the moment when he showed the slightest of carelessness, Edwin Hector exploded his magic. It was an unfavorable situation. It would be right to retreat to save his life, but Roman made a different judgment based on his own experience. This is the time. He found a gap in the attack and dug into it. Then, he used the Heavenly Demon Sword art and cut off the head of Butler. And as a result... Slash. Tuck. Tuck. Roman's head flew off. It was only an imaginary conclusion based on the Butler that Roman had. Experienced, and he could react sufficiently to an attack of that magnitude and even attempted a counterattack when he saw Roman attacking him. The surroundings changed once again. In front of Roman Dimitri's eyes, Edwin Hector was using Inferno, And, this time, he made a different choice with the scorching flames that he had used to fill his entire vision. If he repeated his choice, he would continue to die. In the imaginary world, Roman repeatedly fought against the numerous possibilities again and again. Regardless of whether the fight would end in victory or defeat, he confirmed with his own eyes what the consequences of his choices would be. Quang! Rumble! He was engulfed in flames. The burning pain in his body felt real, but Roman was enjoying the situation. I am not absolute in this world. In my last years in Murim, life felt too boring, but Roman Dimitri has to risk his life against Butler, who is not even the strongest in the Hector kingdom. Maybe I wanted something like a new challenge, a new form of strength. I am a being who cannot live contentedly with a comfortable life. He smiled. He had been through many hurdles while he moved from the bottom of the demonic sect to the peak of it. A child who may have been ordinary at one time had become an extraordinary being as his life continued. And, once again, Roman rushed toward his enemies after breaking through the flames. He could not remember just how many times he had repeated the battle in the imaginary world. Nevertheless, he continued to fight. Therefore, numerous possibilities were piled up in his head, depending on how the opponent attacked, how they reacted, and based on the memory of his own experiences. The attacks weren't always unsuccessful. There was a situation where Roman slashed both of them and won, but Roman wasn't satisfied with it. In a world where the weak were treated as food, that was the way of surviving. Baek Junhyuk constantly remembered and came up with various ways to defeat the enemy whenever he encountered a difficult enemy. He attacked Edwin Hector. He had laid out a trap. He would use the loyalty of Butler, and when he blocked his attack, he would pierce the gap in Butler's form and put his sword in the heart. Quack! Quack! Butler screamed. After he stumbled for a while, he collapsed, and Edwin Hector, who was left all alone, was not a match for Roman. Eventually, both of them died. And when Hector's men arrived, Roman was no longer there. In the next situation, he used the attack of Edwin Hector to his own advantage. He used it to attack Butler, and Edwin's magic exploded on him. FSSHHHH. Crackle. A fire broke out. Roman cut off the head of Butler, who was on fire. It was an act he had repeated countless times. All the numerous cases were accumulated one by one. The reality might have been different. The real enemy must have had more potential than that, but, at least, he learned the method of destroying the enemy thanks to the fights he had experienced. The enemy's head was cut off in a short amount of time. That was his final breath in the imaginary world. As he had accumulated as many experiences as he wanted, his consciousness returned to the surface, and his surroundings changed as well. Nevertheless, Roman's condition wasn't good. Even though it was a battle that took place in his mind, the red wounds because of the burning flames could be seen on his body. He was now feeling pain in all his body. Nevertheless, even though his mouth was dry, he stood up. It is time to head back. The war was not over yet. Chris explained the things that had happened when Roman returned. As the Liege expected, the Hector kingdom immediately attacked the front defense lines of the southern front. The third and fourth defense lines collapsed in just one day, and the second also fell soon after those two. And just yesterday, the Hector kingdom gathered all their war supplies near the rear position. It seems that they are preparing to fight a deadly battle. A siege was the best bet they could make. For Roman, the result wasn't unexpected, but it was different for Henry Albert. Sir Roman. The royal family of Cairo is very upset. They thought that the defense lines on the southern front could hold on until Cairo's main force arrived, but they collapsed within 3 days. There is no hope on the southern front. Our lives are at risk if we continue to stay here. The main force of Cairo would arrive soon. Nevertheless, the Hector kingdom had already completed its preparations for war, and making any more sacrifices was meaningless. The royal family of Cairo is waiting for contact with Sir Roman Dimitri. We have done enough. So why not leave the rest to the main force of Cairo? A siege is a battle where sacrifices are a must. If the Hector kingdom is pushed to the edge of the cliff, it will certainly not fall down alone. He looked anxious. He was worried that Roman would somehow still want to do this. Nevertheless, as he was determined to stay by Roman's side, he hoped Roman would not die so fast. Even though it had been only a week since Roman had gone to spend some time by himself, the situation of war had changed so much. Eventually, Roman said, "Connect the magic call with the royal family of Cairo." It was time to talk to the royal family of Cairo, who had asked for a week's time, now. Chapter 106. The Unfinished War. Part 3. Once the magic call was connected, Roman Dimitri's face appeared on the screen that was installed in the conference room. This is Roman Dimitri, reporting from the southern front. He could see all the leaders of the Cairo kingdom, including Daniel Cairo, gathered beyond the screen. When they all saw the face of Roman, the desire to bring him to their side could not be hidden anymore and was revealed from their eyes. We heard reports that all the defense lines of the southern front have been captured. "What was your unit doing all this time?" asked Daniel Cairo. It had been a week since he had contacted him. Naturally, he couldn't help but feel frustrated. Roman Dimitri was the only one who had won a battle against Hector, but he had shown no reaction while the defense lines were being captured. It wasn't Daniel Cairo's intention to undermine the merit of Roman Dimitri. However, as he did not communicate with him over the previous week, he questioned his purpose. Roman answered, "We have been rearranging our power for a week." Power reorganization. "I don't want to blame you because you truly achieved something great against the Hector kingdom. In the meantime, however, 3 defense lines of the southern front have fallen into the enemy's hands. War isn't always a perfect place, so couldn't you have gone to a defense line and helped them? I will give you my honest opinion. The only reason we were able to win against the Hector kingdom was because of luck. They had the power to overwhelm the entire southern front at once. Fortunately, the mountain's path was advantageous, and darkness could be used to counter the enemies. However, fighting the enemies in the plains wouldn't have been the same, so we decided to hold on to our power. From the moment the captains of the defense lines locked down the gates despite my advice, there was no way I could help them." The entire conference room went silent. Roman didn't feel the slightest concern when he answered and told them the reason he didn't move to help the others. People who were watching the battlefield from afar surely must have had a lot to say, but what was happening on the battlefield was different from what they knew. And Roman knew how to make himself understood in an instant. The Hector kingdom risked everything in this war. Butler, who is ranked second in Hector's rankings, has also participated in the war, and I confirmed that the enemy commander, Edwin Hector, can use magic. I think everyone understands what that means. Mages wield absolute strength in the plains, so I did not head down the mountain. I thought that the correct time to fight wasn't now but when the main forces of Cairo arrived. What? Daniel Cairo's eyes widened. Butler and Edwin Hector were familiar names. Butler had a reputation for representing the entire Hector kingdom, and Edwin Hector, unlike himself, was rumored to be born with the talent and qualities of a king. Nevertheless, he was also a mage? That was shocking. Cairo's leaders, who were listening as well, were stunned. Roman's judgment was right. If the Hector kingdom brought a 5-star or a swordsman and a mage, there was no chance they could win against Hector with the current power on the southern front. Butler went to war. The Hector kingdom seriously risked everything in this war. They all, once again, realized how great Roman was. He had managed to do a successful guerrilla operation against the combination of Butler, a 5-star aura, swordsman, and Edwin Hector, a mage. They all became certain that Roman Dimitri was a monster. As they looked at the talent that was shining so brightly and was so vast, they all became even more greedy to have him. "Your Majesty, I don't think there is any more need to pressure the hero of war." "I have the same thoughts." Roman Dmitry was the only person who defeated the Hector kingdom on the southern front. If he decided that it was right for him to gather and conserve the strength, then his judgment should be trusted. The other nobles also added words to support him. Those statements were clearly disregarding the king. Nevertheless, Daniel Cairo was used to it. He suppressed his anger and said calmly, "I understand. I will not ask any more questions." Roman Dmitry. Cairo's main force will arrive soon. However, the Hector kingdom must have already completed the preparations for their fortress in the rear position, so we will attack the enemies after making sufficient preparations. Therefore, join the main force and help them. I apologize, but time isn't on our side. What do you mean? Roman's words were suspicious. Nevertheless, as soon as the Hector kingdom had locked themselves in the rear position, he had thought of one possibility. It will take at least 3 more days for Cairo's troops to arrive here. If the rear isn't destroyed by then, the Hector kingdom will surely attract the attention of external forces like the Kronos Empire. That was enough to shock everyone. The Hector kingdom was pushed to the brink. Still, they hadn't given up on the war. They quickly destroyed the defense lines of the southern front and chose to resist the troops of Cairo. What is the best and the worst thing the enemy can choose? Roman changed his perspective and looked at things from the enemy's point of view. It would have been ideal if Cairo graciously agreed to the negotiations with the Hector kingdom, but because of his existence, that was impossible. Roman revealed every single detail of the plan the Hector kingdom had made through the magic communicator. The Hector kingdom would have no choice but to think of the worst and would need a solution to the breaking down of negotiations. The threat that Edwin Hector spoke of, releasing the poison of the necromancer and ruining the land, was not the right choice. They needed a way for the Hector kingdom to survive. And there was only one way for that. The purpose of the Hector kingdom in this war is to solve their nation's difficulties. They do not have any grudges against the Cairo kingdom, nor do they wish to occupy the lands of the southern front. Rather, if they manage the land, the burden on the nation will only continue to increase. The Hector kingdom is in a corner right now. Nevertheless, they chose to fight back. You can see that from the situation we are in. The Star of Hector wasn't the kind of person to walk ahead without a plan. If he risked his life to stay on the southern front, it was because he made a good plan and choice. The warp gate that can teleport a large number of people is installed near the rear position. The warp gate is a very convenient tool made with the civilization of magic, but it also has the potential to be used in a war, so it has to be destroyed in the case of emergencies. The southern front lost the warp gate in the surprise attack. What do you think will happen if the Hector kingdom makes a deal with the Kronos Empire in exchange for the warp gate and information? The Hector kingdom will get the reward they are hoping for, and the Kronos Empire will have another stronghold over the Cairo kingdom. Daniel Cairo was stunned. His expression turned pale. He hadn't even imagined that Hector would take such an extreme method. He had thought that Cairo had the advantage now, but when he heard Roman's words, he realized the southern front was almost lost. Then what do we do? He focused his eyes clearly on Roman. While everyone was sure of victory, only Roman had thought of that. Because of his actions in this war, the leaders of the nation had all acknowledged Roman and were focusing on his words. Roman said, "There is only one way. War was a simple thing. In the end, it's a straightforward method. We will capture the rear within 3 days. The moment the opponent is defeated, all the problems are solved." Roman's prediction was right. Edwin Hector, who had gained control over the entire southern front, immediately contacted the Kronos Empire. "I will get straight to the point. We hope to sell the southern front of Cairo to the Kronos Empire. As you know, the warp gate is in the rear of the southern front and can be called its heart. We have it intact, and we are willing to sell it to you if we get the right price." The warp gate was made with the essence of magic. The warp gate Edwin Hector had prepared for the surprise attack was a low-grade one that could only accommodate a small number of people, but the one on the southern front was a high-grade one and had costed a lot of time and money to install. And they were successful in capturing it. As Roman had said through the magic communicator, they had planned on pressuring the Cairo kingdom by giving the base to the Kronos Empire, which would then attack them on both the southern and the western front. That's an attractive proposition. Beyond the screen, Count Hadid of the Kronos Empire laughed. Nevertheless, I cannot accept the proposal of the Hector kingdom right now. The Cairo kingdom will only struggle to take back the southern front in the future. It is a good thing that you secured the entire southern front, but why must we be the ones to bear their wrath and struggle? If you wish to do business with us, prove that you have completely captured the rear position for a month. If you prove that and it does not collapse, we will make a deal with Hector and pay the right price. The Kronos Empire was filled with greedy people. It would have been beneficial to take up the offer even now, but they were trying to get as much as they could out of this. The Hector kingdom, despite knowing that, had no one else to go to. I accept the offer. After 1 month, we will contact you again. Tuck. The magic call was cut off. The result was as Edwin had expected. A giant like the Kronos Empire didn't think that the Hector kingdom's plan would go smoothly. Edwin Hector said, Jackson. Yes, Prince. Contact the Hector family right now. With our current power, we cannot last a month. We will secure manpower and supplies to last us a month by linking the warp gate of the Hector kingdom with this one. I understand. The Cairo kingdom would soon attack the rear position with everything they had. Edwin had prepared for magical weapons like flares, but it wasn't enough to last a month. The distance was huge, so it would take quite some time to link with Hector as well. According to him, it would take a minimum of 3 days. And if they earned the time in which the warp gates would be linked, they would be able to survive. This war is a battle in which we must not be defeated. I will surely return to the Hector kingdom with hope. The heavy burden of carrying the name of royalty had already been accepted by Edwin Hector calmly long ago. The scheduled time was only 10 days. And Cairo's main force, which had arrived at the southern front, couldn't hide their anger as they saw Hector's flag fluttering. From afar. Damned idiots. How dare they plant the flag of Hector on Cairo? I will tear them to death. That was the main force's commander, Count Fabius. He had set up the base near the rear of the southern front and had called the captains into the barracks. Captains came in one after another, but even when they saw Count Fabius, they didn't act politely. It is like the people of the central government got involved in the war on the southern front just for the sake of profit. That means that they have that great of a desire for Roman Dmitri. This is a war not just about destroying the Hector kingdom, but also about winning the heart of Roman Dmitri. And he himself was a representative of Marquis Benedict. Baron Thale, sitting on the right, was on the side of the Kronos Empire, and Baron Brahim, on the left, was on the side of the Valhalla Empire. They had special missions beyond the war. They all hoped to persuade Roman as much as they could. Count Fabius said, His Majesty King Daniel ordered us to wait for Roman Dmitri to join and then consult with him on overthrowing the Hector kingdom. Please wait a little while. The meeting will begin shortly. I understand. An awkward silence lingered. How much time had passed? A soldier's voice was heard from outside. Roman Dmitri has arrived. Flutter. The door opened, and Roman Dmitri, the hero of the southern front and the protagonist of this conference, caught everyone's attention.